Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Uh, is the voice and video clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So let's get started from what we were doing last time. If you remember, we discussed about the processor organization, and we looked at the different categories of instruction and then tried to figure out what is the hardware requirement for each of these, and we superimposed all that, and that formed the data path. And then the control path, which sequences the operation of these different elements in the data path. We said we'll leave it to you for reading, but we'll not discuss in the class. Neither are we going to ask questions from the control sequencing of the data paths. But then we also remarked that the data path that we discussed is not really used in modern day processors. Those are too primitive. And now there is a lot of parallel computation inside even simple processors in the mobile phone or in the desktop or in the laptop. Many forms of parallel processing occur. And unless we discuss those, we will not get the correct picture of what is happening. So far, what we discussed is more of forming the background or the basic understanding of a processor. Now let's see what really happens. Nowadays, it is rare to find a processor where parallel computation does not take place. And we had said towards the end of the last class that fundamentally there are two forms of parallel computation. One is called as data parallel computation, and the other is operation parallel computation. In data parallel computation, the same operation is applied to multiple data elements, and these operations run on different processors. So the same operation running on different processors, but using different data elements. And you might wonder that where such computation occurs. These computations are common in multimedia applications. I'm sorry, can you please repeat your question? Okay. So an example of this is the multimedia computation. Multimedia, as you know, is multiple media like graphics, video, audio, etc. And all these, if you analyze the graphics, animation, speech, sound, and so on, you will see that, let's consider a graphics element. Let's consider a picture, and you want to, let's say, transform the picture. Let's say you want to portray motion. So what you need to do is every pixel you need to translate by certain amount, X and Y amount. It moves every pixel. So just see that we are applying the same movement operation on every pixel, and these are done by different processors. Similarly, let's say we want to increase the intensity of a picture. We want to do the same operation on every pixel. So multimedia operations are typically data parallel, where we operate on multiple data at the same time. And as we proceed, we'll see that there are components in your laptop, in your mobile, in the desktop, which handle this kind of computation. And nowadays, these have become sophisticated, and we call them as GPUs, graphical processing units, We'll look at them little later, because there is something even more fundamental than the data parallel computation, which is operation parallel computation. Here we have different instructions which execute at the same time. Let me just repeat that. The different instructions of a program are concurrent. They execute exactly at the same time on different processors. So in data parallel, we divide the data set. Let's say a large picture will divide into 16 by 16 pixels or 4 by 4 pixels. Each unit is 4 by 4 and so on, and then perform some computation on each of these data set. Whereas the function parallel or operation parallel, we divide the problem into different tasks. One simple example of operation parallel is when the instructions, basic instructions, execute parallelly. We can also have threads. In your operating system part of the course, you might come across the threads and processes. So the threads and processes may run concurrently on different processors. So these are the operation parallel or the function parallel. This is the two fundamental classification of parallel computers. Just to give an example of a data parallel computation, rather trivial example is, let's say we have a string consisting of small letters. We want to convert the string A, B, C, D, E, F into capital letters. There may be different processors P1 to P6, which at the same time do this conversion. This conversion is carried out by different processors. So just see that this conversion to small to capital, the identical work is done by every processor, but they are working on different elements. This is a trivial example, not really practical, but then possibly helps in understanding what is involved in data parallel computation. But one thing to notice is that each of these processors, they can carry out their work without really expecting results from the other processor. If the result produced by one processor is to be used by another processor, we call that as dependency in computation. And when there is dependency in computation, data parallel becomes totally bogged down. It cannot make good progress. It's bottleneck. So one important characteristic of the computation, data parallel computation, is that lack of dependency, near absence of dependency among the computations. And the examples of multimedia, that is pictures, animation, sound, video play, and so on. These are good examples of data parallel computations where there is hardly any dependency between the work of one processor to another. But there is another alternate classification of parallel computers. This is called as a Flynn's classification, very old, maybe 60 years old classification, but then this has become so used, people are so used to this classification, we will spend a minute to look at how Flynn classified 60, 70 years back. He said that computers can be either single instruction, single data. So they just take one instruction at a time and one data at a time on that they process. These are the uniprocessors. Multiple instructions at a time, but operate on a single data. These are rare processors. Single instruction and multiple data. So there is a single instruction working on multiple data elements, and we just call that as data parallel computation. And in Flynn's classification, these are the SIMD computers, or single instruction, multiple data. I am sure those who do higher studies or even in your daily life or in your job, you will come across these terms: SIMD, SISD, and MIMD. MIMD is there are more than one instruction being executed every cycle, and these instructions execute on different data. And these are the ones which we are going to discuss first. These are general purpose, present in almost every processor, and even SIMD nowadays, like vector processors, etc. These are there nowadays in every processor. But once upon a time, these SIMD computers were very rare. They were used only in scientific computations. I was talking about Cray computers. They were one of the early vector processors. But nowadays, there are vector processors in every kind of computation. We'll come to that later. So the Flynn's classification is all the computers can be SISD, SIMD, MISD, MIMD. You might hear these terms, so I'm just telling it here. You can depict it in the form of a block diagram. The processor takes instruction stream from the memory and also data stream from the memory, and it may also update the memory, the data memory. So these are the uniprocessors, these are the SISD, this is the block diagram for that. All conventional computers, even the pipelined systems that we are going to discuss now, they will fall under this. There can be multiple functional units like 5 adders, 3 multiplier, floating point unit, and so on. So there can be multiple functional units in SISD, and also the vector processors by themselves are SIMD, but we'll see that we can also have pipelined vector processors. So the pipelined vector processors will become SISD. Right now it may look like awkward. What are these terms and so on? But just bear with. We're just discussing the terms, but then we'll discuss the concepts and the architecture, etc. behind this a little later. Just have some patience. SIMD, as I said, that there is a single instruction stream. So the single instruction is supplied to multiple processing elements or the processors, and each processor takes a different data stream and works on it and possibly updates the memory. The SIMD are the GPUs, vector processors, etc., which operate on their own data. And then multiple instruction and single data. I said that these are a bit rare. Just see here, there are many processors. Each one is having its own instruction. They are having their own instruction stream. But one single data stream is coming to this processor, and that is passing through here. The same data is being executed by different processors. And I said that these are very specialized processors, very rare. You may not come across in daily life, but they exist in the form of systolic arrays, wavefront arrays, etc. These will not be included in this course. So MISD are rather rare, esoteric computers which we will not discuss. Just the term you may hear from somebody and should make sense. MIMD, multiple instructions, multiple data, and these are practical. The multi-core computers are examples of MIMD computers. So here each core takes a different instruction stream and also has its own data stream, like a thread or a process and so on. And each thread has its own data, and they execute on different processors, and these are also important from practical perspective. Now let us start with pipelines, because as I was saying that the processor that we discussed is not used in that form anymore. Even the simplest processor you come across will use pipeline. And please observe what we are discussing just now, going to discuss just now, and I'll ask you this question, that how come the processors in their basic form are not used anymore? And all of them are pipelined. What is great about pipelining? I mean, why is it that it is there everywhere? Starting from small processor to large processor, trivial processor to sophisticated processor, everywhere it is pipelined. Rare to find a processor which is not pipelined. So why is that? What is great about it? And 50 years back or 30 years back, I think in 1986, the 8086 processor, Intel 8086 processor was not really pipelined. It was a non-pipelined processor. But then I was telling you the story, I think the other day, that there were two competitors, Intel and Motorola. Motorola 68,000 processor was equally popular. But then Intel went for pipelining their processor. And after 3 years, Motorola processing unit, they had to sell off distress, loss-making unit. So pipeline is a very powerful concept. Let us see, very simple but powerful. Sarik, is there any question? Is there a question? Please unmute and ask question. We'll be happy to answer your question. I'm just waiting if somebody asks a question, but so far questions are rather rare. And it is a distance mode and I cannot see you. So it becomes difficult for me to point out that who is having a question in his mind, because if we see you in a class, we understand who has a question in mind. But here you'll have to ask questions. And these are considered positively. We note down that who has asked question, we reward them. So please ask questions. Okay, let's proceed. Let's look at the pipeline. What is this powerful concept? So here, pipelining is called as an overlapped execution. In computer processor, pipelining means different instructions are executed in an overlapped manner. Before one instruction completes, the next instruction starts execution. But then it is not restricted to the processors. We do this in our everyday applications, but we don't notice. We are so used to the pipelining concepts, we don't even notice them that we do it. And it has proved to be very popular, and we call that as instruction level parallelism, or ILP. Pipelining is an example of ILP. So what we mean by ILP, instruction level parallelism, is that the parallelism or the parallel execution is at the level of instructions in a program. That means different instructions are executed at the same time. In contrast to, we were saying about different threads getting executed, different processes getting executed. Here the instruction, like your C program, you have written 100 instructions and those instructions are executed at the same time, not in the same time, in overlapped manner. One instruction taken up, and as soon as that is taken up, the next one is taken up, and so on. And as I was saying, it is rare to find processors nowadays which are not pipelined. So just to look at an everyday example, let's say there is a college exists which admits a batch of students. And this batch of students, they complete first year, second year, third year, fourth year. And then they admit the next batch of students. And if you ask them why they do that, they say, yeah, we have to first complete one batch of student. They have to study, use their lab and all classes, and then only we'll take the next batch. But nobody does that. Everybody, every college admits students every year. Even before the first batch passes out, as soon as they go to the second year, the first year students are admitted. So what is the advantage? that the average number of students graduating per year is 4 times. And we don't need any extra lab. We don't need extra teachers. The same teachers teach the subjects to different batches and also classrooms. So so there is somebody we need to mute. Srikanth, we need to mute you. We'll just mute Srikanth. Okay. So let's proceed. So in the pipelined version of the engineering education, by the time the first year students go to second year, another first year student is admitted. And by the time the first batch goes to third year and the second batch goes to second year, the third batch is admitted and so on. And we are so used to it. This is actually an example of a pipelining. In contrast to 4 batches of student graduate, sorry, the students graduating after 4 years and admitting the new batch and so on. And this is an example of pipelining. And same thing in instruction execution. The first instruction is we do the instruction fetch. As soon as instruction fetch of the first is complete, we start the decode for the first instruction. In the meanwhile, the next instruction we do the instruction fetch. And the first instruction after the decoding, it is executed. And the second instruction is decoded at the same time. And another instruction is instruction fetch and so on. So at any time, there are 5 instructions that are undergoing parallel execution. Now let's look at pipelining a digital system. What is involved there? If we want to pipeline any digital system, what we need to do? Let's say we had a computational unit which used to take 1 nanosecond time. It is non-pipelined and we used to get the result after 1 nanosecond of computation. But to pipeline it, we'll split it up into 200 picosecond units or 100 picosecond units, 10 of them or 5 to 100 picosecond units. And then we need this extra little bit of hardware, which is basically a latch or a buffer. So as soon as these green ones are the combinational units, they don't store anything, they just compute. As soon as they produce the result, this needs to be stored somewhere. And that is the latch or the buffer. And this buffer drives the next unit. So we need to split this large computational unit into small parts and also add buffers. We call this as the pipeline registers. This is one small example of an invisible register that we are saying. We said that there are thousands of invisible registers. This is one of that we have registers in between these small units. And the advantage of pipelining. Yeah, please. Yes.
In those buffer register, won't it take time in loading and then storing them?
Yes. Yes, Sivans, good question. So it is a bit of a time. Let's say 200 picosecond it takes computation time. We may take 5 picosecond to store into the latch. So yes, very correct. We need little bit of overhead. But just see here that in the first case, we used to get one result after 1 nanosecond. But here in the pipeline execution, we will get one result after 210 picosecond, assuming that 10 second takes to write to a buffer. So the first one comes here, writes here, and then it drives this. The second one comes in and writes here, and by the time this one comes here, and so on. So there is a bit of overhead there, correct? But then we get substantial speed up. And the important thing to notice here that our computation hardware has not changed. Only we needed some few buffers here. That's all. But the hardware remained the same. We just split it up into small units and then added buffers here, and just 5 buffers, 4 buffers, and then we are getting a almost 5 times speed up. Earlier it used to take 1 nanosecond. Now every 200 picosecond almost we will get one computation finished. So here hardware investment is not there, no replication of hardware. And if we have a n stage pipeline, let's say 20 stage pipeline, we'll get a 20 times speed up without any investment in hardware, almost zero investment. We just added some few buffers, that's all. Now, what is causing the performance improvement? Can anybody answer this question? So how do we get
components of so the different components are working at the same time when we pipeline?
Okay, very good. So Archit, he says that we are keeping the units busy. See, earlier, if you notice here, once the computation, the initial part was complete, it used to idle and the other parts used to take up. But now what we are doing is we are keeping the occupancy rate of all the hardware here much higher. They're almost always busy. So the trick here is that we are keeping the different units of the hardware as busy as possible. It's a major advantage because the programmers don't know. They have just written a C program. They don't bother how it is getting executed, but inside it is getting executed parallelly. No special effort from the programmers. Whereas in a thread level parallelism or process level parallelism, the programmers have to identify the threads and write the different threads, thread synchronization and all that comes. Here nothing, the same program, just giving you 20 times speed up. Very nice. So a k-stage pipeline, let's say we have n instructions. Now how many cycles are needed? We have a k-stage pipeline and we have n instructions. So the first instruction that comes takes k units of time to fill up the pipeline. And then the rest of the instructions follow it, and each one comes out in one cycle. So the k cycles for the first instruction, because as it graduates one after other unit, pipeline unit, it takes k cycle for the first output, first instruction to complete, and rest n-1 in one cycle they complete, one cycle each. So k plus n-1. And if each unit takes tau, the total computation time is k plus n-1 into tau. On the other hand, in the non-pipeline processor, it will be nk into tau, because each of the instruction will take n units of time, n clock cycles. Sorry, k clock cycles. Each of the n instructions will take k clock cycles. So n into k into tau. Now, if we compute the speed up of pipeline, we'll just divide this and we get nk by k plus n-1. But one thing is left unsaid is that if we improve the execution speed 20 times, then the data must be supplied. The instructions and data must be supplied to the processor 20 times faster. The instructions have to be fetched because it is computing in a time 1/20th of what used to take earlier. So all that instruction and data must be fetched in 1/20th time. So the memory, we said that the memory bandwidth must increase by 20 times. The memory has to become very fast. Otherwise, it will not work. It will not give you that 20 speed up. As we proceed, we'll see that how we manage to achieve this increase in memory bandwidth. So we'll just do one small exercise. In a non-pipeline processor, the computation used to take 180 nanosecond. And we are using a 4-stage pipeline. And the pipeline cycle time, that is each unit of the pipeline, each stage of the pipeline takes 50 nanosecond. So what is the speed up for an infinite stream of instructions? A very easy exercise. So there are 4 stages and each instruction, and since there is an infinite stream of instructions, we can assume on the average an instruction completes in 50 nanosecond. Because if there are only 10 instructions or so, we'll also have to consider how much time it takes to fill the pipeline. So it will be n into 180. Okay, this is the formula we had discussed, n plus 4 minus 1, because n is very large. We'll just ignore it here, and therefore it is 180 by 50, which is 3.6. Please work this out. And today we had announced a quiz, actually, it's about 20 minutes. Tridhara, are we ready with the quiz?
Yes, sir, I'm ready.
Okay, great. So we'll stop here. Continue from this point Thursday's class. Please attend to your quiz 7 today. Thank you.